I go on a short vacation, I come back to one of the most insane banners possibly ever add to Fire Emblem Heroes. Not only did we get a new emblem, we actually got a new mythic as well, and of course it might be our first collab ever with Fire Emblem Shadows of all things. That's right, we have a Mythic Lyn, but Uma Musume version, which is kind of blown my mind. I did expect Shadows to eventually get into the game, but not as a mythic, and definitely not in this way. So with that said, let's jump in, let's talk about both these new units, their entire kits, their support options, their inheritance options, what kind of impacts they're going to have on the meta, what kind of impact the emblem ring will have on the meta, the overall banners itself, and if you should pull. With all that said, let's get started because we got a lot to talk about. Let's start off with Uma Musume Lyn, and this is a light mythic. That's right, she's actually a light mythic, which is kind of crazy to me. She is also going to give out the defense buff, and she is a green beast cav. That's correct. Even though she has a bow in her art, she actually is a beast weapon, but of course there's a little bit of a spin on that, so that she can still have that bow of feeling effect. Okay, so let's look at Winds of Duality, her preference weapon. This has Slang as effective against flying, so it still has that bow aspect to it, of course. She's going to offer some nice support with Exposure, Speed Shackle, and Defense Shackle on the closest foes, and it will spread, and that's an HP condition. Now notably here, this is at start of turn, this is not after unit acts, so this can be kind of cleansed pretty easily at the moment, but it is very powerful support either way. She's then going to have a nice condition for a weapon where she's either transformed or an HP condition of 25%, and she's going to get her average amount of stats of 14, she's going to get an average amount of true damage overall, about 25, which we've seen pretty much staple onto every unit nowadays. But she actually has a nice amount of flat TR as well, which is pretty good. But most importantly, she's actually going to get a potent follow-up effect in her weapon also. This is really good. Potent follow-up is like one of the best effects you can get in your weapon, especially when it's a full 100% and not like a conditional 40% or 80%. So very nice effect there. It also opens up her build a little bit, as we'll talk about a little bit later on, where she doesn't have to run a skill in that B slot. So also very good. And then of course, because she's technically a beast unit, right? She also gets Cavalry Beast Transformation, giving those extra stats, a little bit of pierceable DR as well. So then we go on to her preference A slot, and we have Reject Tyranny. This is going to give you a very easy transformation effect, which is really nice. And then for some reason, if you're using an offense mythic and you throw its defense, it also gives you an even easier turn 1 transformation, which is cool. It's going to have some nice support here with 50% DR Shred as a support effect. And then most importantly, and like the thing that really makes Uma Musume Lyn like the most crazy thing, is that she gives out style as a support, right? A style, that's crazy. We've had such a strict amount of styles since release with Emblem Lyn, but now we're just giving it out as support. So this is a range 2 style. What this is essentially going to do is going to give the ability for all your axe, lance, swords, beast, and dragons to attack at 2 range. And they can do this once per turn, but still, there's no cooldown. You could do it once per turn, every turn, as long as she's with the 2 spaces to give that bonus back out. This is absolutely insane. We just saw, with Brave Violet, a 3 range, but it had a cooldown, and then we just got the new Ryoma, who has his own 2-space style. But now we just have anybody, like any melee unit can essentially use this, and this is extremely powerful. It has giant implications on the entire game. We'll talk about it a little bit more later, but man, this is one of the most powerful support effects we've ever seen. Then if we go to the actual mechanics of the skill, we have a little bit above average stats. We have a good amount of true damage. We have a good amount of flat DR, and we even get a layer of special flat DR as well, which is pretty cool. And then you get a nice special jump of 2 at max. It's going to be based off the debuffs on the foe, and you're going to get anti-guard as well. So overall, a pretty powerful A skill. I cannot lie, it's pretty amazing. We then have Bestial Agility, giving her some nice Canto, some extra true damage and stats as well, and NFU, which is always good. But then we have a new C skill in Dark Beast Force. And what this is going to do is you're going to get speed defense -4 on the foe, you're going to get a full feud effect, you're going to also neutralize penalties on yourself during combat, and you get +5 true damage during combat, but not with AoEs. So this is essentially like an upgrade to the feud effect we currently had on Beast before this, and it is just, really, really powerful, right? Anytime you can get true damage in your C slot, that is a game changer, and so obviously this is going to be a very powerful skill for any beast who wants to kill things, and also has an open C slot, which isn't the most beast units, but it's definitely not something I want to write off by any means. Now when it comes to stats, Uma Musume Lyn has a pretty typical stat line: 40 HP, 46 attack, 49 speed with a super boon, which is very nice, 36 defense, and then a res of 24 with the super boon as well. So nice speed super boon there, and overall decent bulk, but nothing like absolutely insane here. Most of her bulk is going to be coming from that flat TR she has in her weapon and her preference A slot. Now, the other thing we talk about when it comes to Lyn is that she is a light mythic, which means that she does offer the reinforcement slot, the same as Rune. This is our first replacement to Rune possible, and personally, I'm not the biggest Rune fan. He's a decent unit, but I much prefer this unit as she just offers so much more unique capabilities. We do have a lot of Beast and Dragon light mythics, right? So you can make things like Ashe, Asker, Lumera, right? Restfelger, way more powerful with this Lyn, and she's giving the reinforcement slot, which means that you can have somebody else in that reinforcement slot instead of someone like Rune if you hadn't had him merged up. So very, very powerful unit here. The biggest thing, of course, is that 2-range style. And why this is so big is it can allow a lot of different strategies, but it also just allows you to clear up the map. One of the big things about Byleth we saw was that he could just kind of go in, clear out some of the key buildings that the defense is using to protect their teams or to like restrict their movements, and then you could just go in on turn 3 again and kind of just go to town. Mythic Lyn, you could do the same thing, but for your entire team that is like the melee range. So you can go in and just destroy as much stuff as you want. Make full advantage of that safety fence too, not necessarily killing things like Emblem Lyn, but preparing yourself for that turn 3 where you can just go all in and destroy a lot of units. It also just makes every strategy a little bit more flexible, right? If you're going in with Gale Force now, like let's say you're doing like a Wings of Mercy or a warping strategy, you now don't have to like warp exactly to where you need to be with your melee units. You can attack behind, right? So it gives you a lot more flexibility on where you're attacking and how you're attacking, which is really nice. And overall, I do think this just makes like your whole team way more flexible. And when we start talking about Corrin, you're going to start to see how much terrain we're going to be getting and how good this effect can be against terrain, which is really, really nice. Now, the other thing we talk about, of course, is Summoner Duels. I think this unit's going to be absolutely fantastic in Summoner Duels. She's going to fit into like a variety of different teams, right? We've already seen how good Ryoma can be. Part of this is due to his reflex, but the ability to attack from 2 range is also really nice, as sometimes you can get around ice or other terrain as well, or you could just attack, in a safe position and then canto back, right? So very, very cool. Another thing is that Umuse Lim I didn't bring up is that she can actually use the Erica ring, right? Because she's technically a melee unit, which is crazy. You can just have your own Brave on her, and she is a pretty decent nuke from what I've seen from testing. She can do pretty good amount of damage. She's not like your top tier nuke you're looking at, like let's say, a Camilla or something like that, but she definitely can kill a lot of things, and on some optimal teams, she won't have to worry about saves. So with that said, let's talk about my Summoner Duels team template. Now, obviously, this is not a real team, and also Lyn is so flexible. I feel like she could fit onto like almost any team. But if you really want to take advantage of like the Beast Dragon-esque support, I think this team's gonna be pretty fun. So the core of this team is gonna be Lyn herself. You're gonna have Duo Happy, and then your flying nuke support. So now, Lyn, of course, obviously is there because she's offering that 2 range to everyone. But then we have Duo Happy, and Duo Happy really was kind of under the radar. She was definitely a decent unit before, but I think that her stonks have just like skyrocketed because she essentially acts as another version of legendary Sakura, but with a little bit of better warping as well, which allows you to have some really aggressive positionings, which is awesome. And so having that on like a dedicated team to Beast or Dragons allows you to have Sakura on a different SDS team possibly, which is really cool. Then when it comes to the 3rd slot, Elm is probably going to be the best unit there. The reason for this is very simple. Elm can apply undefended mid-turn to the enemy team. And with something like the Micaiah ring, you could even have it like done multiple times per turn, which is really powerful because it can allow you to get round saves that might be annoying. Like, let's say you're running into like an Ignithir ball, you can use Elm to just remove Ignithir from the equation and kill somebody else. Some of your other options, of course, will be Restfelger, who just does a ton of damage, and now that she has the option to actually attack from 2 range, her range is extended, which is really nice. It essentially fixes one of her main problems that she had, which was getting in. We then have 2 like support options. Timbarn is definitely here. Timbarn does not do the damage as the 2 above him, and he doesn't offer necessarily the most powerful support, but he is a really good rate, like Detect Bot, Anti-Warp Bot, so he is an option there. And then Elm could also be there as another undefended option, though I do think Elm is just strictly better mostly. In the 4th slot, we do have like a flex slot. This doesn't necessarily have to be these 4 units by any means. You can put whoever you think is needed for that map here. But I do think this team, one major weakness is it doesn't have very good action economy. So putting in a unit like Chrom or the new Lucina or the new Veronica or the new Ingrid can like really empower this team. Each of these offer different things, right? Chrom offers not only a powerful range nuke, but additional true damage to your entire team. The new Lucina can be a melee unit, so that means she actually gets to take advantage of Lyn's style as well, while also offering action economy. Veronica gives you some nice feud effects, while being a mage nuke, which is really good. And then, of course, Ingrid is just absolutely god tier, giving out reflex to everyone as well. Now, when it comes to saves, you have some really great options as well. This isn't even all of them. We do have the new Corrin, so if you want to play a more defensive style, taking advantage of that enemy face terrain, you could do that there, and she's going to be pretty good in that position. You have Ike Nithir, so you can actually do like an Ike Ball. Now, personally, I don't love this as much because I think Ike Ball kind of has its own archetype already. And so while you can merge these two archetypes together, I think it will be stronger to just have Ike Nithir as its own team and then maybe have a different save here. And then we have my personal favorite, Dedue. I think Dedue really fits well into this team because he offers a save at a much higher range, right? So you can essentially have him like ally supported with Happy, protect Happy at a farther away range, which can allow you to play really aggressively while still protecting, Happy. It can even allow Dedue himself to warp in, right, within 2 spaces of Happy and do an attack at 2 range, which is pretty fun and cool. And then lastly, you do have Rhea, and Rhea can also play that in a more defensive style, giving that miracle so it just has more bulk to your entire team, and allowing you to still have, that powerful save in the back line. Either way, this is just one template. There's going to be a ton of templates, and I think as we get into SDS season, we'll start to see just how powerful Lyn can really be and how much power she can offer the entire team. Okay, with that said, let's move on to the Light Mythic tier list. So in the top of Light Mythic tier list, I have to have Lyn. I think Lyn is just by far the most powerful unit when it comes to Light Mythics. I don't think it's even close now. Peony is still a dancer, so she's extremely valuable, and she's still in the S+ tier. But I will say the value of dancers has gone down dramatically in the past year and a half. We just have so many units who give out extra actions, and so they aren't as necessary as they were before. They're still very good, don't get me wrong, but they're just not as necessary. And Lyn offers such unique and powerful support while being a good nuke herself that I think she just easily is the best unit, and she offers reinforcement slot on top of all that. In S tier, we're gonna have Restvelger. I think Restvelger is an absolutely powerful, dominant melee nuke while being a mythic unit as well, and now she can attack from 2 range, so she's got even better somehow. So big upgrade for her in my opinion, which she really didn't need in Ether Raids, but I think, hey, I'll take it. Then we have Rune. Rune himself is a pretty powerful unit. He can be a pretty decent range nuke. He's definitely not as powerful as he was on release, but he is decent and he is a good Lyn ring user, and he does offer empathy to the entire team. So I do think he is a very solid light mythic in S tier. Now we have A tier, and A tier is where there's a kind of a big fall off in my opinion. I do think Lumera's value might go up a little bit more after the introduction of Corrin. We'll talk about this a little bit more in the Corrin section, but you'll see that her terrain is actually really valuable. It's kind of like when Brave Robin came out, and she was a pretty good counter to that ice. Because of the interaction with her terrain and Corrin's terrain, or the Corrin ring terrain, she can actually erase it. So we'll show that a little bit later on, but it is pretty valuable, so it's possible Lumera goes back up into S tier, but we'll have to wait and see. In A tier, we do have also Dagger. Dagger is just a really flexible mythic who can fit onto any team and offer some pretty good value there. Next, we have Milla. I think Milla is super underrated. This unit is so ridiculously good. Honestly, just the ability to have, let's say, Barricade or even Dragon Wall for anti-warping on her kit makes her very nice. But also she does offer isolation, and Dark Season doesn't have a true cleanser, right? People were running Freyr or Hother as cleansers. Freyr has become less and less common, and I do see more Hother now. And the thing with Hother is that she only cleanses 2 debuffs. So you do have isolation for Milla. A lot of times it can stick and just turn off, let's say, the enemy team's Micaiah ring user, which means that they can't do really tricky trap plays, which is really nice. And at worst, it takes out one of the debuffs that's being cleansed, which means that one of your other debuffs can stick. So I think Milla is just really fantastic and super underrated. Then in the bottom of A tier, we do have Asker and Ashe. I think these units definitely were not as powerful as they once were. Asker in particular was one of the best mythics in the entire game, but his value has definitely dropped, and unfortunately his remix and refine did not help him very much in my opinion. Now the thing is, he is still a beast unit who offers support, and what makes that really good is that we just got Lyn. So Lyn does make him a bit better. He still is a pretty decent Gale Forcer as well, so there is that, and that's kind of the same with Ashe as well, where Ashe can be a decent Gale Forcer and an okay frontline in an emergency situation, right? If you need to collect pots or something like that. In B tier, we have Euler, Air, Nerthus, Freya, and Goto. Now, all these units can contribute in some ways, but I don't think they're very valuable themselves, in their unique ways, right? Air obviously does have some really good inheritable options as a dagger user, which can make her very good, like Disarm Trap, or the swap of skill on the C slot is really nice as well. So there are ways to make Air very usable, but she doesn't offer anything particularly unique, right? The units above her do. The same could be said with Euler, I think even to a lesser extent, where Euler really is just not offering the support options that you're looking for there. She can be a Lyn ring user, but her nuking isn't anything fantastic. We then have Nerthus and Freya, and it's mostly the same situation here. They can offer some cool beast effects, let's say a Barricade user or something like that. They can be decent in Gale Force as well, but they're not really offering much besides that, which I don't find all that valuable. Also, as calves, they can struggle on certain maps due to the trees and stuff like that, where they cannot warp in or they can't run up as well. So that's also like a big restriction, especially with our current meta Ether Ray defense maps. And last, we have Goto. Goto is just really bad at the moment. Hopefully, his remix fixes that to an extent, but his AoE DR is not great, especially as a visible bonus, which can be easily stripped away with by Loki, right? Who is very common on Ether Ray's defense at the moment. So this is gonna be my overall light mythic tier list. Let's move on because we still have a ton to talk about. Okay, up next, let's talk about Emblem Corrin. And I'm going to be honest, I'm a bit sad this isn't Roy. I was really looking forward to Roy. Corrin's great though, don't get me wrong, and it's cool that she finally has gotten the sword, even though somehow it's still not the Yada, which is just crazy to me. Omega Yada isn't in the game yet. But besides that, let's talk about what her preference weapon actually does. So you have Sword of Fate. This has Slaying, it has Distant Counter. And at the start of player enemy phase, if you're within 2 spaces of an ally, you're going to give Draconic Hex to yourself and all allies, and also 50% DR Shred. So just pretty common buffs overall. Draconic Hex is pretty nice. It is a nice little stat swing, so that's pretty good. But the DR Halving's pretty common overall, not too big of a deal. You're going to get your average stats of like 14, and if you do trigger save, that will automatically be 14. You're going to get 20% flat DR based off resistance. You're going to get 20% additional flat DR based off special, whenever a special procs based off your resistance as well. You're going to get 20% true damage based off your resistance. So you're kind of seeing the basic trends here, and then you get no follow-up as well. So pretty common effects overall, I would say, for this weapon. There's nothing like here that's exactly crazy, right? The double layers of flat DR is very nice, though. I will definitely say that. And it's definitely one of the things that are keeping Corrin alive, as we'll talk about a little bit longer, because, man, her stats are a little bit rough. Now, when we're really talking about Corrin, the thing that makes her really unique and special and powerful, in my opinion, is her preference special, Torrential Roar. So this is going to boost damage by 60% of your res, which is a pretty nice modifier right there. You're also going to get anti-guard, which is nice. You're going to get 40% damage reduction, just non-pierceable all the time, which is really good. And then you're going to do a res check, and then depending on how far you win that res check, up to 10. So you'll either like make your follow-up attacks easier and also make the foe's follow-up attacks more difficult based off that res check. So it could be up to 10. This is a very powerful effect, right? We've seen this on Legoose Friend, we've seen this on Diamant. Anytime you can make it more difficult for your opponent to W is a very, very, very powerful thing for speed stacking units. So very strong already. But then we also have this really cool effect where at start of enemy phase, that's correct, enemy phase, if there's no Divine Icicle, you're going to put down a new type of terrain called Divine Vein Icicle and Divine Vein Vert. And the way this will essentially work is it's going to put down icicles within 2 spaces of Corrin, and then vert in between those spaces. What Divine Vein Icicle does, it's essentially the same thing as Divine Vein Ice, but when you break it naturally, it will turn into vert terrain. So you won't actually lose terrain there. You'll still have terrain, but it just won't be an icicle anymore. And what Divine Vein Vert does is essentially like an upgrade to Divine Vein Green. It's going to have that anti-warping effect. It's also going to inflict attack speed -5, guard, and then even a scowl effect, which is really powerful. But most importantly, it has cancel control attached to it. That's right, it has cancel control attached to a terrain, which is absolutely insanely powerful. So, like, as an armor, Corrin is not only going to be your save, she's going to offer you some ridiculously powerful support. One thing you've noticed if you played SD a lot in the current meta is that cancel control has become more difficult to fit onto teams. It's gotten a little bit better the past couple months, but it's still not the easiest thing. So being able to have that on an armor, on a terrain is kind of insane and powerful. So very, very unique and awesome preference special here. When it comes to roles, Corrin's mostly just a tank and support, and when it comes to game modes, she's going to be used in every single game mode, most likely. She just scores really well in Arena, she can work really well on Ether Ray's defense to her terrain and being a save, she can work really well on Ether Ray's offense if you support her correctly and avoid the tree man, and then in SD, having turn 1 terrain is just really, really powerful, and it can really affect the meta in lots of ways we haven't fully got to see yet. Now, before we talk about her inheritables, let's talk about her stats a little bit, because her stats do matter a lot. So when it comes to Corrin, she unfortunately is following the path of legendary male Corrin and some of the Allirs as well, where she has very high resistance but very low defense. So they kind of like made her defense into a dump stat. So she has 43 HP, 46 attack, 49 speed, 26 defense with the Super Bane, and then 49 resistance with the Super Boon. Now, this is not the best in my opinion, and this is kind of the problem Dragons have had as saves, especially speedy ones, where they just have to dump a stat. There's not enough stats to go around, and typically it tends to be defense, and that's not the best because our current meta is pretty much dominated by defense targeting units, right? We have all of our melee nukes who are just completely like ridiculous right now. We also have a lot of ranged nukes who also are like, you know, bows, daggers, and stuff like that, right? We have a few magic units, but not a ton. And so that's what we're going to end up talking about with this skill. So first of all, we do have Torrential Boost. It's a new boost skill. It's essentially the same as our other boost skill we got on like Duo Corrin. The only difference being we're getting attack speed and res instead of defense speed and res. So that's something to consider. I think defense speed and res might end up being better. I wish kind of they dumped her attack stat instead of defense. I think it might have helped her a lot. Next, we have Pair Up. And Pair Up 4, wow, this is a new skill. So this is like her engage skill, kind of like Lagoo's Friend 4. And what this essentially is going to do is if you have a unit within 3 space of an ally, you're going to attack at speed -4. You're going to increase the speed difference necessary for a follow-up attack on the foe by an additional 10. So that is nuts. This is the crazy effect really of this skill. It combines with her preferred special, making it up to 20. So now you need 25 speed to double Corrin. That is nuts. You're also going to neutralize your own penalties during combat. You're going to get 15 plus true damage. You're going to get 10 flat DR. And then also, if they trigger Brave, you're going to get 7 additional flat DR. And then lastly, you'll get another layer of additional flat DR based off the distance between you and the unit. And so this is something I'm going to show right here on the video. But this is not a clash effect, right? This is like literally counting the distance between you and Corrin. So if you are a ranged unit, right, you're going to have a little bit of distance there. But let's say if you're like Byleth, like I'm showing in this example, it's going to be even more distance, right? So you get even more flat DR there. If you're going up against Emblem Lyn, who's like super far in the back line, you're going to get a ton of flat DR because this is uncapped. Or if you're using it against a Lyn Ring user, you'll also get a ton of flat DR here as well. So very powerful new inheritable B slot. And let's talk about some of the options we have for B slots at the moment. So when it comes to speed-based B slot options, we have Pair Up, which I just talked about right now. We have Null Sea of Void, who just came on Brave Byleth. And then we have Lagoo's Loyalty, which came on Desert Ike all the way back in January. Now, all of these are pretty interesting, and they all offer different strengths and weaknesses. So like we talked about with Pair Up, the big thing about here is that it does require an ally within 3 spaces. So what this means is like your unit is a little bit less independent, as they are kind of like leashed to an ally within 3 spaces, right? So that is something to consider. But other than that, you get all these effects, and these are some really powerful effects. First of all, you're getting 3 layers of flat DR. Now, the layers are a little bit smaller, right? As you look at these two other skills, they have 20% speed-based flat DR. So typically, a unit will have around like, 90 to 100 speed, so that's about 20 flat DR there. While with Pair Up, you're getting a flat 10 no matter what. But when you get hit with the Brave, you're getting additional 7, and then another, 2 to 6 based off of the distance. So it's actually about the same. It's not too bad of a difference. You are getting 15 true damage no matter what, which is really nice. With No Sea of Void, it is a speed check. So you're like kind of like doing the difference between your speed and the other speed. So you're not always getting 15. And Lagoo's Loyalty only has 7, which is like a massive cut, right? You're getting almost, less than half, which is nuts. The other big thing is the additional effects you get. So with Pair Up, you're getting that additional speed necessary for a follow-up attack. I think this is what really matters because it makes Pair Up really strong against units who are using speed essentially to W. And it makes it really good on units who have no follow-up. Because if they have no follow-up, it forces them into a speed check, right? So if you put Pair Up onto a unit with that, it's really, really synergistic and powerful. It lets you not only get around guaranteed follow-up attacks, but it makes it much more difficult for even fast units to actually W, which drastically increases your survivability, which is big. With No Sea of Void, what you're getting here really is you're getting 80% AoE damage reduction, which is really powerful. And then you're getting no counter disrupt and Phantom Speed 7. Phantom Speed 7 is not bad. It lets you get some better speed checks, but it doesn't actually increase your speed, and it doesn't really affect follow-ups in any way, right? It really only affects things that require speed checks, like let's say Gust or something like that. NCD is very valuable. We do have units who have flash effects or healers who are pretty powerful at the moment, so being able to get around that is nice. The 80% AoE damage reduction is good, but AoEs are very much on the downtrend right now, so it's not the most valuable meta effect right now, but it is overall pretty good. Now, when we come to Lagoo's Loyalty, the thing about this is that you're going to have a decrease in speed necessary for you to make follow-ups, so it's the opposite of Pair Up. And honestly, Pair Up's effect is just better. Being able to double opponents easier is nice with Lagoo's Loyalty, but making it so that your foe can't double you is much, much more important as a tank, right? As an Omni tank. You're also going to get a special jump of 2 before the foe's first attack, and honestly, this is the effect that I think makes Lagoo's Loyalty worth running. It's so ridiculously powerful, especially with our new Arch Rival special, right? We've seen this come up on Brave Byleth, and Lagoo's Loyalty with Arch Rival is really the combo that makes him so powerful, and so that is the effect that if you're looking for, that's why you would run Lagoo's Loyalty over something like Pair Up or NCD or NC Avoid, right? The other thing, of course, is that there are requirements for Lagoo's Loyalty. There is no space requirement, but it does require you to either use a defensive special or a 3 cooldown special. And remember, this does include slaying. So if you have a 3 cooldown special, but you have slaying, it's only 2 cooldowns. So that's the really big restriction with Legoose Loyalty overall, in my opinion. And that's why Arch Rival is so good with it, because it's, you know, a big cooldown special, which means it meets the requirement. Either way, I just wanted to show this off and give you an idea of like what the 3 options are and like what kind of units who would want to use these, right? So if you're like running a unit who has a big special, who needs that special jump, Legoose Loyalty could be a great option there. But if you're looking for a unit who just wants to make it be as tanky as possible, and also doesn't mind being on a leash, the pair up can be a very good option. I think we're going to be seeing a lot of this skill in the future as it's just really, really powerful. Okay, the last skill we can talk about is Briar Magic Save. So that's right, now we're kind of swapping away from far save and near save, and we're going into magic saves. Kind of what we saw with Eichner with the physical save. The big difference with Eichner is that he makes a magic save himself, right? So with this, the thing is, and why I don't really love this, is that it is your typical save skill, right? You're getting speed and res +4, you're disabling adaptive damage, you get 5 flat DR, and then you get a reflex effect, but it doesn't stack. It's not the powerful reflex. It's still good, don't get me wrong, but it's not the powerful reflex you're thinking of when you think of like Legendary Black Knight or like Ingrid, right? The problem with this, in my opinion, is that Corrin doesn't have a lot of meta magic units at the moment. Now that could change. Like literally this week we could get a Halloween banner and they're all magic nukes and they're all amazing, and all of a sudden Corrin stonks rise really hard. But at the moment, magic save is not as valuable as physical save or just a far save in like overall, right? And so I do struggle with this a little bit because typically in the meta we have like T Veronica, we have Brave Sharena, we have Emblem Micaiah, and then we also have like Summer Celica. That's the units you're typically going to see. Now in Aether Raid's defense, you do have a few more options, as there are like, you know, mythics or like even like ranged nukes that you might see with a Lyn ring. But overall, magic save just isn't the best thing. And when it comes to the combination with Eichner, which I think a lot of people are considering, the thing is that you can't run this skill now, right? Because Eichner gives out the magic save effect. So you can't have 2 magic save effects on Corrin. So that means you have to run a different C slot, like maybe like Breath of Life 4. But honestly, there's not that many great options. And so while it definitely can work and you can make it work, I'm not the biggest fan of this. And as you could see in some of my testing that I've done on release, Corrin is very strong as a save, but it's very finicky when it comes to matchups. The big thing with her is that her defense is so low, she's very vulnerable to getting one-shot, unfortunately. So when you have those big hits, like, you know, the big hits you see on, like, let's say Arena Crom, or like the Micaiahs, or even I had Athos almost one-shot her as well, if she can, like, get hit really, really hard, especially if it's targeting defense, she can struggle. Because she just doesn't have the defense for it, unfortunately. And so that means that their attack stat actually matters, while with a lot of other tanks, the attack stat doesn't matter as much. It's mostly about true damage. With her, it's not completely true. Unless she's fighting a magic unit, which she does very, very well against, as I've kind of shown in my testing against like Veronica, which is a neutral matchup, or like Sharena, which she wins pretty convincingly. The other problem is that it means that she's a bit weak to brave attacks as well, even though she does get a bit of additional DR thanks to pair up. It's not the best option for her when she's running into units like Arena Crom or even Brave Baldur as well, who can do really well into her, as she does get that color matchup, which means she's not only getting Arch Rival popping off, but she's just hitting twice before Corrin even gets a chance to counterattack. So overall, when it comes to Corrin as a unit, I do think she is very powerful, and I think if you invest into her, she'll give you a good investment back. But I think at like +0 base, she can struggle in specific matchups, which makes her a little bit more questionable to use. Not that she's bad by any means, and I think if you build a team around her and give her the support she wants, she can definitely work. But I do think she needs that. Like something like a Seth, who can give her additional layers of flat DR and extra stats in particular too, right? She does not want to be outsped. That can help her a ton. Okay, now let's move on to the actual Emblem Ring itself. Let's talk about how it works, how it interacts with some units, the implications of it, and then we'll jump into some tier lists as well. Okay, let's start off with what Corrin Ring actually does. So we have the typical effect of boosting damage by max special cooldown ×4. This is on most Emblem Rings at this point, so nothing really big there. What really matters is that at the start of enemy phase, you're going to apply Divine Vein Icicle and Vert. Now, this is pretty much the same as what Emblem Corrin has herself. The range isn't quite the same, but it's pretty much going to be the same overall. And this is extremely powerful because you can put this on anyone you want. Now, this just offers and completely changes so many things for not only Aether Raid's defense, but Summoner Duels as well. We'll dive into some of the unique interactions in a second here, but that is something just to consider. Okay, so here we go. This is a little example of Aether Raid's defense just to see how the terrain kind of goes out. And as you can see, we have the ring and we have Corrin herself doing it. So as you can see, when we activate it, it's going to actually have a little bit of overlap here. So we're going to have the ice terrain from Sharena's ring here, and then we'll have the vert terrain there. But as you can see, like right next to Corrin on the right and left, some of the terrain gets canceled out because of the overlap on the terrains kind of destroying each other, right? That's what you're going to have to consider when it comes to E3A's defense, how you position your units exactly so that the terrain is most effectively applied. And then also like on the following turn, on turn 2, where the terrain might be, depending on how those units move based off priority. So that's going to be something they're like very big concerned about. And here's another example of exactly what I'm talking about, right? Like we have the opposite now. We have Sharena in the spot of Corrin, and it completely messes up the terrain. So now we have ice over here where it's not very useful, and we have a wide opening here for anyone to just kind of cancel in and get attacks on Corrin. So it's gonna be something you have to consider about in E3A's defense and Summer Duels. It's gonna add a lot more complexity and thought to your positioning in units, which I like and don't like. I like because I think positioning has been something that's been missing from the game since saves came out. But I do think that it's like a lot to think about and consider, especially if the opponent's using Corrin or a Corrin ring. How those terrains will interact will be a very big deal on who ends up winning that match. Now, the other thing I have to talk about is the power of Elamine. So once again, Elamine is back, and she is more relevant than ever, because Elamine can actually turn off not only Corrin, but the Corrin ring effect as well. That's right, Elamine is back in a big way, as she can essentially just false start both of these. Now, if you do cleanse it with, like, let's say a Freyr, then, we're back to, step 1. But if you apply enough debuffs, then you might not have it, like, get cleansed, like with a Hother or, like, a Ninja Saline, right? So, something just to consider when it comes to the ring itself. Okay, another interaction I really want to show here is how these terrains actually work. So, if you go up with Ingrid and you destroy the ice terrain, it leaves the vert terrain still there, right? Which is very important because it means that you still can't warp here, right? Which is, a big deal. But let's say if we do it with a different terrain, you're going to get a completely different result here. So we have the ice go down and everything else, but we have Lumera walk up and apply her own terrain. This does not count as destroying the terrain. So the icicles don't turn into vert this time. They actually just get overridden, which is a big deal and could be a reason why Lumera's value might go back up, as she can just do such a big, massive range of rocks and kind of open up the enemy team, kind of the same way she did with like Brave Robin. Of course, the other thing we have to show is not only like the Summer Duels example, but also an Aetherheads example of what Camilla does into these units. So this is a double terrain right here versus Camilla. What essentially happens here is that they cancel each other out, as you can see. Essentially, like the range where Camilla's miasma would be completely overrides this. Now, this is good and bad for a few reasons. First of all, it does get rid of the ice, which can be nice, and the anti-warping terrain, but it also means that Camilla has no way to warp in. And so this means that you might need to run like the Celica ring on her to actually get in. And if you're doing that, you're losing a lot of firepower because you're not running the Erica ring, right? And you're also not having Miracle, which means that she's more vulnerable to being killed. And you can see this is the same even when you're just running Corrin herself. The terrain, you do get more grass terrain, but you do still lose out on the core ice terrain from Camilla. And this seems to be the case in Aetherheads, or this is also the case in Summer Duels as well, which means that it could definitely make some big changes for Camilla. I don't think this is a hard Camilla counter by any means, but it does make Camilla like kind of swap up her build possibly, or her team options in order to make sure she can get in there. And also it means that Sakura could be a very good option for her as well. So just in case if she does end up on these grass range, she can still cancel out, because if she attacks from like right here, she will get cancel controlled, right? So when it comes to the overall implications of Corrin Emblem's ring, we do have more difficult to attack due to immediate terrain. So like in either Summer Duels on that turn 1, it can be very difficult to approach right Corrin's team, allowing you to play a more defensive strategy as you have to break ice to get in there. There's also more anti-warping now for options. We were just starting to see the anti-warp options kind of fall off a little bit, but now with Eignithir and Corrin's ring, we have more anti-warp options than we even did before. So that is a little bit disheartening for me, as I do like warping, but it is something to consider. As I just showed, this does change Camilla's options for approaching and her options for builds as well, which is something we'll have to consider. Ice being back in Aetherheads defense is a big thing. We definitely saw this at the end of last year. The thing that really pushed Ice out of Aetherheads defense at the end of last year was the introduction of Emblem Lyn, because she could just snipe past it, right? So this could bring this back, which will also mean that you'll need more ways to remove terrain, such as Lumera, but also like Mythic Lyn herself, because she can give out 2 ranged attacks, which means it's very easy for a lot of your units to go in, break terrain, break buildings, whatever else, and get back to safety. So there's fully that as well. It also increases the value of the Lyn ring itself, because you don't have to worry about terrain, right? You can just snipe from far away. Now, of course, Corrin herself does get some advantage against that with pair up, so that's something to consider. But either way, I do think the Lyn ring value has gone up. And then lastly, the other option will be that there's more options for Ice other than Ice Lock and Robin. Ice Lock has become one of the most powerful skills, possibly the most powerful skill of the entire year, just because it can do so much on pretty much every single game mode. And so having yet another option with Corrin and her ring means that you can have either Ice Lock on different teams so that you have ice everywhere. It means that you don't have to run Ice Lock necessarily if you don't want to bring Sakura or like Loki or one of your other healers. Either way, it just gives more options for terrain, and so we're going really into this deep terrain meta, which is cool but also a bit scary and also a bit difficult to like visibly read as there's just so much going on the entire map, right? Okay, with that said, let's move on to the Emblem Hero tier list. And in the top S+, I'm going to have Micaiah, Corrin, and Erica. At first, I had Corrin a little bit lower, to be honest, and I'm still not completely sure as I've only done a few days of testing with her, and she is very strong into units that have like rely on speed, right? Like they need high speed to hit multiple times. She does pretty well against mages. She does really well against, but some of the big physical nukes she can struggle. And so while I do think she will be very powerful, it's mostly going to come down to her terrain support and less of her being a tank itself, right? Like unlike, let's say, like Black Knight, where Black Knight when he came out was just like felt unkillable, right? Unless you use Black Knight against himself. Corrin's not exactly that, right? She's much more leaning into the support options she has, and I think they are very powerful support options, similar to Reflex as well, though. But I do think Corrin is going to take second place. In first place, I just have Micaiah. I think Micaiah is just the most flexible emblem hero we have at the moment. She's absolutely fantastic at nuking. She's absolutely fantastic at doing, team-wide cleansing, which is so valuable in our current meta, with not only, like, being able to remove at start of enemy phase or player phase debuffs, but also mid-turn debuffs. She's just absolutely fantastic. I love this unit. I use her on SD every single season. Love it. In third place, we have Erica, and I can definitely see Erica going down from here. She's starting to fall off a little bit at this point. Her firepower is not as high as it once was, and the biggest thing, in my opinion, that really has lowered her value is the introduction of physical save. Before, she could essentially snipe around the far save and kill things, and it made her extremely threatening and just powerful, right? But now with physical saves, she actually has to fight those matchups, and those matchups can be a bit rough for her at certain times. So I think that is something to consider with Erica, and I can definitely see her going down in value in the coming months. But for the moment, I'll have her barely hanging on the S+ tier. In S tier, we're going to still kind of Lyn. Lyn's definitely dropped off a bit. She was easily the most powerful emblem hero for E3's offense for a very long time. The sniper range went on for almost 7 months, but with the introduction of Baldur and Hother, her value has gone down quite a bit. With that said, there are still a lot of strategies where you can use Lyn very effectively, where she can be a secondary nuke, and that is very good. Being able to just kill anything from all the way in the back line is still very valuable and powerful, so I'm going to have her in S tier. In A tier, we have Sigurd and Celica, and both these units can be valuable, but they do struggle. Sigurd can struggle to kill a lot of things now, and so even though he has insane mobility and the extra action, he just struggles a lot. And the same with Celica, where Celica can be very powerful, but she requires very specific teams, like Legendary Sakura support and Larry support, right? Essentially, she doesn't want to fight any type of tank or save. She wants to get around and kill the squishies, and then use Sakura to get back out. So she definitely has value in summer duels in particular, but she definitely is not a powerhouse that she might have been. She really was never a powerhouse, but either way. And then B tier, we have Ike and Marth. Both of these units can struggle in their respective roles at this point. They can be usable, don't get me wrong, but they're more of arena or arena assault units now, and they're not really meta units anymore. Okay, now let's move on to the Emblem Ring tier list. And in S+, we're going to have Erica and Corrin. I think Erica's ring is still the most powerful overall because it's so just necessary. The ring itself swaps so many matchups, either from being a nuke unit, let's say on Camilla, right, allowing you to just secure kills that way, or being on a save unit and allowing them to secure kills and be unkillable essentially. So just very powerful ring, and I don't think Corrin's ring is quite as powerful, though it is very good, don't get me wrong. When it comes to Corrin's ring, I think this is going to be a very meta impactful unit ring as well. Just allowing it to have train on whatever unit you want is very good for E3's defense, offense, and summer rules. And so I don't think this ring should be underrated by any means, and it might become more powerful with time of the introduction of other units. But at the moment, I think it's fantastic. It's so good. In S tier, we're going to have Lyn and Micaiah's ring. Lyn's ring, I think, has gone up in value now with the introduction of even more terrain. Being able to snipe the back line is so very good. And as long as you have it on a ranged nuke who can actually kill things, you're pretty much set up for success. Micaiah's ring also having cleansing on your team is really valuable. Now, obviously, the reason why I have it here, and it's a bit lower than Emblem Micaiah, is because it only affects the unit you're swapping or interacting with, right? It doesn't cleanse your entire team. And so that is one of its big downsides. The big upside though is you do action economy for summer duels, or you can make a trap for Aetheryte's defense, or in Aetheryte's offense you can cleanse debuffs off your nuke. So obviously it's just really good overall, and definitely something you want if you don't have it. In A tier, I have Celica and Sigurd. The reason why I have them both here is because they both have key weaknesses, right? Sigurd's weakness being that yes, you get extra movement and crazy Canto, but some of this can be replicated with skills now, right? We have the Tempest skills, we even have the Tempest Echo skill, which you can do this as well. And it's weak to stall. And in SD in particular, Duo Thor exists, and stalling your Sigurd ring user really sucks. There are ways to get around it, but it's annoying. And then the same thing with Celica, where we have so much anti-warp right now. When it does activate, it's fantastic, but when it doesn't, it just feels like you're getting a pretty dead ring overall. And then down in B tier, we have Marth and Ike. Both, once again, all these rings are good, don't get me wrong, but Marth's ring has lost a little bit of value. We don't really see a lot of Shield Fighter in our current meta, which is like one of the most meta places to use the Marth ring. And the same with AoEs, right? AoEs have definitely fallen off, and Marth's ring was a big enabler of those. And then lastly, Ike's ring, which does just add as a nice damage reduction to saves who don't need the Erica ring or can't get the Erica ring. So I do think Ike's ring is still very valuable, and you could even argue it's better than Marth's ring, but it definitely does not have the giant meta impactful effects as the ones in S or S plus tier. Okay, with that said, let's talk about the rest of the banner. When it comes to the rest of the banner, this banner is actually pretty stacked. In first place, I'm going to have red. Now, I think you could argue between red and green being the best. My point for being red being the best is that you're not only getting an emblem unit, but you're also getting one of the best legendary and meta units in the entire game, right? DK is extremely powerful, and even though he's not as unkillable as he once was, Reflex is absolutely broken. It's one of the most powerful effects in the entire game, if not the most powerful effect in the entire game. So being able to have that on your save is just ridiculously good. And of course, if you want to merge him up, he also boosts your arena scoring, which is great. You then have Corrin herself, who we've already discussed, which is great in Emblem Hero. And then we have Matcha. And Matcha, while Matcha isn't like the most fantastic unit or like meta unit by any means, they do offer an arcane sword, and they're a skill duplicator, and they do have some decent fodder as well. So you're not really losing out there, even though obviously you really want to pull Corrin or BK in that slot. In second place, I'm going to have green. I do think Lyn is just an absolutely absurdly powerful unit, and something you're definitely going to want to have like one copy of at least. So she herself is carrying green like by a lot. But we do have two other good options here. We do have Tharja. Tharja is definitely an underrated unit. She's very powerful, like as an anti-meta nuke in summer duels or even Aetheryte's defense. She can duplicate any fodder you put on her, and she has great fodder to begin with, like Ice Wall. So this unit's fantastic, right? Just absolutely fantastic unit there. And then we also have Tiki. Tiki, in my opinion, not the greatest unit by any means, but she does have the Dragon Flame, which is great fodder, and she can duplicate skills. If you're trying to, like, build up some dragons, she can help you out there. The reason why I have this below red is just that neither of these units need merges necessarily to increase score in Aetherytes or Arena or something like that. So merges are great as skill duplicators, but I find them a little bit less valuable if you're trying to really build a core. In third place, I'm going to have blue. Blue is overall decent. The thing here is if you need a light core, you have two great options, right? Racefelger and Lumera are going to be very good mythics to have merged up. Racefelger just got a big buff with Mythic Lyn. She's a very powerful melee nuke. She's just fantastic, right? And then we have Lumera, and Lumera has definitely fallen off a little bit, but I do think that her AoE terrain support has gone up a little bit in value with Corrin, so it's definitely not a bad unit to merge up if you want to do that. Not the best option though. I do think Peony is still the best. Peony, Mythic Lyn, and like Racefelger might be the three best options. But not bad, definitely. And then we have Athos, and Athos does enable your reinforcement slot for anima defense, which is very nice. He is a very powerful mage tank and nuke. I think people really do sleep on this unit quite a lot. He does need a bit of a build upgrade to be fair though, but man, I've been using this unit since he came out, and he is way better than people think he is. Though to be fair, he does not have amazing fodder, and you don't really need merges on him. And then in last place, we have Colorless, and Colorless does have really one good unit here. Loki is just gotten so good since her release. She's super ultra meta in summer duels. Being able to just remove those bonuses off of the enemy team is really powerful. She's great in Aetheryte's defense for the same reason. Her fodder's not great, and you don't really need merges on her, you just need one copy. So that is like one reason to not pull for there, but if you don't have one copy of Loki, you could consider it. On the other side, we do have Naga and Grima. Naga's pretty cool. She's like a unique and fun dragon support, so if you're like looking for that, she can be good for that. Her fodder isn't great though, and you really don't need merges or like extra copies of her. And then you have Grima, and I think Grima's like easily one of the worst units that has been released in the entire year. She's essentially the Nime of the year. She's just a very bad unit with like a horrible save and a horrible fodder, and just like there's no reason to pull for this unit other than art. Okay, let's move on to the final part of the video, should you pull. Now when it comes to the pros, we have a game-changing style support in Lyn. This unit's just gonna really, like, I cannot undersell how much this unit will change things for competitive play. Like, this unit's gonna be so powerful. We also have like a top tier nuke. She's very good nuke there as well. You have an Emblem Ring. Emblem Rings are like the most must-pull thing we have in Fire Emblem Heroes, and this one is very unique as well. So I think pulling for Corrin just for that ring is worth it. She also has a soft counter to Young Cam, which is pretty nice. You have some great shares in red and green, and some overall fantastic fodder as well. Now, when it comes to the cons, we do have the Arena banner currently running, and it does have a very powerful Chrom. I think Chrom is going to be one of those units who just sticks around for a year or two or even more, like mostly every other Chrom that's come before him. So I do think like that's possibly a good reason to pick him up instead of picking up these units, because these units will rerun more often than Chrom does. We also have the Halloween banner being revealed quite soon, and we have the Ninja banner in November, which typically has pretty meta powerful units as well. So overall, what is my advice should you pull? I think that you should wait a little bit, see what's on the Halloween banner first, and then wait until that like last day of the Arena banner maybe, and then pull. But I do overall think this banner is worth pulling on. I think Corrin and Lyn are very powerful units you're going to want to have on your account. You also have Black Knight sharing there as well, and Black Knight is a very powerful unit you want on your account as well. So I think overall you're getting a lot of value out of this banner for pulling. But if you don't have like the Spark from FEH Pass, just be cautious because you can go really deep into these banners and not get what you want. So just, you know, take your time and make sure you consider all your options before pulling. Okay, with that said, that's going to be the video. I'd love to hear your guys' opinions on Mythic Lyn, on Emblem Corrin. Are you excited for these units? Are you like horrified by these units? Are you afraid we're going to get never-ending Fire Emblem Shadows characters now? I'd love to hear about it. So make sure to drop a comment down below. Let's start a discussion, have some fun. As always, I'd like to thank all my members for their constant support, and if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. This has been Oblivion. I'll catch you guys all later with more Fire Emblem Heroes.